social justice. Commissioner Schneck have held leadership role with the Catholic Climate Covenant and Catholic Mobilizing Network. He also previously led the Franciscan Action Network and served on President Obama's White House Advisory Council for the Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnership. Please welcome Chairman Stephen Schneck.
Good afternoon, everybody. As you just heard, I currently serve as chair of the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom, or USERF as it's often called. And I'm honored to be here today with you as we celebrate, or as we memorialize, Vietnam Human Rights Day, a day to remember the importance of advancing fundamental freedoms, including the freedom of religion or belief, commonly referred to as FOR. It's a day to mourn again for those in Vietnam who have been persecuted and denied their rights because of their religious beliefs. I'm gratified today to see so many familiar faces around the room, people I've come to know and respect in our mutual efforts over the last few years to speak out for freedom of religion or belief in Vietnam. In the moments that I have to speak, I'd like to highlight some of the Commission's work. As many of you know, USERF is an independent bipartisan agency of our government, created about 25 years ago. And our job is to monitor religious freedom worldwide, using international standards, in fact, specifically using the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, which has been mentioned already today. And in so doing, we also make policy recommendations to the United States President, the Secretary of State, and Congress, and other parts of our government where freedom of religion ought to be of concern. Each year we release an annual report that assesses religious freedom conditions in countries that we determine to be the worst violators of religious freedom. And since 2002, we have recommended to the United States Department of State that Vietnam be designated as a country of particular concern. This is our worst possible category. It means that we find Vietnam to be among the worst countries in the world in regards to religious freedom. As this year's report from USERF details, the Commission remains extremely concerned about the systematic, ongoing, and egregious violations of religious freedom that are occurring. Vietnamese authorities often threaten, harass, physically attack, detain, and imprison individuals merely because of their religious beliefs. Additionally, in some instances, they have forced individuals to renounce their faith. The Vietnamese government continues to enforce, for example, the 2018 law on belief and religion, and it's implementing decrees that strictly control religious affairs of all of its citizens. Among other things, this dangerous law allows authorities to demand financial records from religious organizations and to suspend religious activities of churches for vague offenses. The government also routinely seizes religious property, outlaws independent religious groups. In particular, the government has continued to persecute the independent and unregistered religious groups of the country, such as the Cao Dai, the Hua Ho Buddhists, the Khmer Krom Buddhists, the Hmong, and the Montagnard Christians. Among these examples, it's clear that if someone does not belong to the state-sponsored religious organizations in Vietnam, they are at risk of being targeted by the government. Such individuals often find themselves monitored and pressured to join state-sanctioned religious groups. Now, last September, USERF released a report titled, and I'm quoting here, "State-Controlled Religion and Religious Freedom in Vietnam." This report from our organization highlights how the Communist Party of Vietnam uses 6 state-controlled religious organizations to restrict religious freedom in the country. These restrictions imposed by the Vietnamese government on independent religious groups clearly infringe on their religious freedom. Individuals should be allowed to practice their faith without having to seek approval from any government. In addition, in our annual report, the Commission maintains a list, a database, of victims around the world who have suffered religious persecution. As of December 24th of last year, that list includes over 80 prisoners whom the Vietnamese government has punished for their religious activities or their religious freedom advocacy. And unfortunately, as we've heard as well, these situations continue to deteriorate. This list continues to grow. We are particularly concerned that ethnic Montagnard and Hmong Christians in the Central and Northwest Highlands remain targets of such persecution, facing detention, arrest, imprisonment, torture, and sometimes being forced to renounce their faith. In March 2024 of last year, preacher Y Bun Bia was found dead hanging from a tree after police summoned him to meet. Previously, local authorities threatened, beat, and pressured him to renounce his faith. Indeed, USCIRF is concerned about the ongoing repression of all religious groups in Vietnam, and will continue to monitor and to highlight the Vietnamese government's violations of religious freedom. Specifically today, we call on the United States Congress to advocate for religious freedom improvements in Vietnam by emphasizing the release of religious prisoners of conscience and by reintroducing relevant legislation such as the Vietnam Human Rights Act, House Resolution 3172. We also urge the administration to prioritize religious freedom in its foreign policy toward Vietnam, to ensure religious freedom and related human rights are not sidelined amidst geopolitical, economic, or security concerns. We also call on the administration to reassess the 2005 U.S.-Vietnam binding agreement to determine whether or not Vietnam's backsliding in religious freedom is a violation of the terms of that agreement. Additionally, we call on the U.S. Department of Commerce to link the removal of Vietnam's non-market economy status with substantive improvements in religious freedom. I want to close today by thanking the organizing committee on Vietnam Human Rights Day for putting this event together and for inviting the Commission to be part of your commemoration. Your coalition's work is vital for the advancement of religious freedom and human rights in Vietnam. So, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, thank you for the opportunity to speak. Religious freedom is vital for the people of Vietnam. Thank you.